Did your students surprise you last semester? Perhaps they struggled with something you assumed they already knew. Maybe they responded to an activity in a way you never anticipated. Or perhaps one student's behavior left you wondering what was really happening beneath the surface. We often begin a course with expectations about our students' knowledge, skills, attitudes, and needs. But as the semester unfolds, those expectations are confirmed, challenged, and sometimes completely rewritten. And whether we recognize it in the moment or not, our students are constantly giving us information. Today, you are going to learn how to read the signals they left behind, not so you can label or judge them, but so you can better understand what they may have been communicating about their knowledge, needs, and learning experience. By the end of our time together, you will identify one thing you want to learn about your next group of students and choose a practical way to begin discovering it. Welcome back to Reflective Reset Sundays. I'm Dr. Kellie Alston, a faculty development consultant and e-learning strategist, and this is the second experience in our 8-week guided reflection series created especially for college faculty. In our first Reflective Reset, we explored what we may still be carrying from the spring semester. We considered what we wanted to carry forward, what required further examination, and what we might be ready to release. If you haven't watched episode 1, please click the card above or the link in the description box so that you do not miss that powerful guided reflection experience. Now today, we are turning our attention toward the people at the center of our work, our students. Our centering question is, what did my students reveal to me last semester? Not what did I think about my students, not what was wrong with my students, but what did my students reveal to me? I chose the word reveal because it means to make known or show something that is surprising or that was previously hidden. It also means to open up or view, and that is exactly what I desire for you as you participate today. During this session, may you see something that was hidden from you last semester, but has now become plain as day. If you have the Reflective Reset Companion, we will be on pages 7 and 8. If not, a blank page or journal will work beautifully. On page 4, you will find our flow through 5 moments of this session. We're going to breathe, notice, reflect, discern, and act. Let's begin. Sit in a position that feels comfortable for you. Allow your hands to rest. Lower your shoulders. We are going to take a slow breath through our nose on 4 counts, and then we will exhale slowly for 6 counts. We're going to do this 3 times. As we go through the moment, allow yourself to set aside course preparation, email, planning, and other responsibilities that may be waiting for you. they will still be there when we finish. For now, give yourself permission to be present. Take a slow breath in through your nose for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pause gently. Now exhale slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do that again. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wasn't that nice? Deep breathing does wonders. It does not require special equipment or a large amount of time, while offering us physical, mental, and emotional benefits. Practicing deep breathing can significantly reduce stress, anxiety, and symptoms of depression, and it also enhances emotional regulation. It supports greater focus, alertness, and mental clarity. So, if deep breathing is not already part of your daily routine, I hope these moments throughout the series encourage you to return to your breath, not only while we are reflecting together, but whenever you need a moment to become calm, centered, and present. Let me tell you a little personal story from the archives. When I began teaching online in 2004, 6 of my courses were synchronous and 4 were asynchronous. My synchronous courses were designed as cooperative learning experiences. Every time we met, students worked together on activities, discussions, or projects. Over time, I learned their personalities. I knew who enjoyed taking the lead. I knew who needed a moment to think before speaking. I knew who could make the entire class laugh. And because we developed those relationships, students became comfortable contacting me when they had a question or a concern. But my asynchronous courses felt very different. At times, I felt like a robot who had been hired to grade papers, answer emails, and try to make learning meaningful for a collection of names on a screen. It felt a little science fiction-ish to me. I knew there were real human beings behind those names, but I did not feel that I truly knew them. Raise your hand if you can relate. So in 2015, I decided to try something different. During the first 2 weeks of class, I invited students to schedule a 15 to 20-minute one-on-one discovery session with me. We talked about their majors, professional goals, course loads, work responsibilities, study habits, and questions about the course. Students could share as much or as little as they felt comfortable sharing. And oh, how I learned so much about them. I told them how much I cared about their success and that I wanted to partner with them. I also offered 20 extra credit points for meeting with me. Was that a bribe? Well, I prefer to call it strategic motivation. You want to talk about best practices? Those meetings became one of the most meaningful practices I have ever implemented. Sometimes the conversations were brief. Other times, students shared their hopes, concerns, passions, and plans for the future. I even found out some of my students were entrepreneurs on the side. I had one student who told me she had 7 children and she homeschooled them all. I took notes so that I could remember what mattered to them and use what I learned to support them more thoughtfully. Years after discovery sessions became a staple in my courses, I read a quote by Robert Diamond, the author of Designing and Assessing Courses and Curricula. He wrote, "An important source of data that is often overlooked is the student." That sentence stayed with me. That sentence shook me. That sentence puzzled me. Because if we are designing courses without knowing who will experience them, what exactly are we designing and for whom? Those discovery sessions helped the names on my screen become people I knew. And what I learned from them changed how I facilitated their learning. Last semester, you may or may not have conducted discovery sessions, but your students were still telling you and showing you so much about themselves. Some of it was spoken directly. Some of it appeared in their work. And some of it was hidden inside patterns that may require another look. Let's explore 3 ideas that can help us interpret those signals more thoughtfully, and I will also give you a personal example to bring it on home. When you teach, you are constantly collecting data about your students, consciously and subconsciously. And your analysis of that data may impact your perception of students. It may lead to judgments or even labels. So the first idea that can help us interpret signals more thoughtfully is student behavior is data, but it is not a diagnosis. An unanswered email, a missing assignment, 5 students asking the same question. Yes, that's data. A dynamic presentation, regular attendance, and unexpected improvement in grades. Data indeed. These behaviors give us clues, but a clue is not a complete conclusion. A learning management system might tell us that a student logged in at 2:14 in the morning, but it cannot tell us whether that student is a devoted night owl, like me, works a second shift, waited until the children were asleep, or suddenly remembered an assignment while staring at the ceiling. We need more information. Likewise, silence does not automatically mean disengagement. A quiet student might be processing deeply. They might be uncertain. They might be afraid of giving the wrong answer. They may need more time. Or yes, they may be disconnected from the learning experience. The behavior gives us a starting point, but not the entire story. Reflective practice invites us to replace immediate judgment with curiosity. Instead of saying, "They did not even care," we might ask, "What evidence did I observe, and what are the possible explanations?" Instead of saying, they should have known this already. This is college. Didn't they take the prerequisite course? We might ask, what did their work reveal about the knowledge or skills they brought into the course? And instead of saying, they just never can follow simple instructions, we might ask, did a pattern of confusion reveal something about the directions themselves? Because I learned early in my academic career that what I perceived as clear instructions may not be clear to my students. And that knowing changed the way I presented assignments. Now, don't get me wrong. That does not mean every student behavior is caused by course design. Students make choices. Students carry responsibilities. And we know that they sometimes avoid work or struggle with managing and prioritizing their time. So keep in mind that our curiosity does not eliminate their accountability. It simply keeps us from turning one observation into an untested story. Let me give you an example. In my synchronous courses, students worked in cooperative learning groups where every member had an important role. Because the activities depended on communication and collaboration, I monitored each group's virtual room during class. In one group, a student, I will call her Amber, never spoke aloud. When classmates invited her to contribute, she responded only in the chat. Her silence was noticeable. You ever heard that saying, the silence seems so loud? That was the case here. I wondered, was she disengaged? Was she unprepared? Did she not want to participate? Her group members may have wanted the same things. I could see uncertainty and perhaps some frustration in their reactions. Without more information, it would have been easy for all of us to interpret Amber's behavior as disinterest or unwillingness to cooperate. Then one day, Amber spoke up. She explained that she had stuttered throughout childhood. Although speech therapy had helped, the stutter had resurfaced in college, particularly in unfamiliar situations. Because the group sessions were recorded, she was terrified that she might stumble over her words and feel embarrassed. She also shared that she had begun working with a speech therapist again. In that moment, the meaning of her silence changed. Her group members responded with compassion. They thanked her for trusting them and encouraged her to participate in whatever way felt comfortable. She continued contributing, first through the chat and gradually through her voice. The group remained together for the entire semester, rotating leadership roles as they completed different assignments. By April, Amber volunteered to serve as the group leader. Can you believe it? She spoke with confidence and clarity. Her initial silence was data. It told us that something was affecting her participation, but it was not a diagnosis. It did not tell us that she was indifferent, unprepared, or unwilling to contribute. Once we learned more, we could see what had been there all along. Not disengagement, but fear. And beneath that fear, a student who wanted to participate and was working courageously toward it. Isn't that a beautiful story? This really, really happened in one of my courses. Now let's move on to point number 2, the second idea. The second idea is that students do not enter our courses as blank slates. They arrive with a starting point shaped by academic, environmental, and psychological variables. And those variables are not the same for every student. Academically, students bring different levels of prior knowledge, preparation, confidence, study habits, writing ability, technological skill, and familiarity with the expectations of college learning. Environmentally, they may be balancing employment, caregiving. I had a student once who was taking care of her bedridden mother, transportation challenges, financial pressure, unstable housing, limited access to technology, or a home environment that does not provide quiet, uninterrupted time for learning. Psychologically, they may enter with confidence and enthusiasm or with anxiety, self-doubt, fear of failure, previous academic disappointment. Do we think about that? Or uncertainty about whether they truly belong in the course. These variables do not exist separately. They interact. A student who lacks prior knowledge but has time, confidence, and strong support may persist very differently from a student who has the same academic gap while also working full-time, caring for family members, and questioning whether they are capable of succeeding. So 2 students may display the same behavior: missing an assignment, remaining silent, submitting work late, or withdrawing from participation, but arrive at that behavior through entirely different circumstances. That is why behavior alone cannot tell us everything we need to know. Understanding students' starting points does not mean lowering expectations or excusing every decision, or coddling them. It means recognizing that persistence is shaped by more than motivation alone. When we understand what students are bringing into the learning experience, we are better positioned to provide the clarity, structure, challenge, encouragement, and support they need to keep moving forward. Somebody said, I feel like going on. The goal is not to remove every obstacle for students. The goal is to avoid designing and facilitating a course as though every student begins from the same place. Let me give you an example. I taught a language and literacy course that required substantial reading, writing, and critical thinking. Each week, students used a discussion framework called Learning Through Virtual Discussion, or LTVD, to prepare for our live class conversation. The framework included 8 steps. Students completed the steps independently, recorded their responses in a digital journal, and submitted their work before class, because I wanted to know that they were prepared when they got there. The questions became progressively more demanding, moving students from basic comprehension toward interpretation, analysis, application, evaluation, creation. And I had used that framework successfully for about 7 years. Then, one semester, I noticed a significant change. Many students were struggling to complete the template thoughtfully. Their journal responses lacked depth, And because they were arriving in class underprepared, from what I could see when I scanned through their journals and graded their journal entries, the quality of our discussions began to suffer. I could have concluded that they were not reading carefully, that they were not taking the course seriously, or that they simply did not want to do challenging work. But during our reflection time at the end of class, I asked them directly what was making the process so difficult. Their answers surprised me. Many shared that they had never been expected to read this much before. Listen to this, y'all. Some said they had completed high school without regularly reading full novels, scholarly articles, or complete textbook chapters. They were not only struggling with the content, they were struggling with the pace, stamina, time management, and concentration that sustained academic reading requires. I remember feeling genuinely shocked. I had entered college after years of reading novels throughout high school. I can still name many of those books today. Without realizing it, I assumed that my students were arriving with a similar academic history. They were not. You hear me? They absolutely were not. Their difficulty with the framework was data. It showed me that they were struggling. But until I asked them to explain what was happening, I did not understand the root of the problem. That conversation changed my response. I did not remove the reading. I did not shorten the framework. I did not lower the expectation for thoughtful, evidence-based journal entries or meaningful participation in discussion. Hear me out. The learning goal remained exactly where it was. What changed was the support I provided to help students reach it. I created a pacing guide that showed them how to break the reading and journal work into manageable steps across the week. I recorded video tutorials explaining each stage of the framework and included examples of strong responses. I taught them how to approach the reading, manage their time, and move from summarizing an author's ideas to analyzing and responding to them. Over time, their improvement was astounding. Their journal entries became more detailed and thoughtful. They began arriving in class prepared to contribute. Their enthusiasm during discussions became unmistakable. They took pride in expressing their own ideas and became genuinely interested in hearing what their classmates had to say. During our final class, several students reflected on how proud they were of their own growth. Some said they had developed a new appreciation for academic reading. Others had begun exploring additional genres on their own. A few even described meeting at Barnes & Noble to discuss course readings or purchase books and magazines that interested them. It was an incredibly moving evening. The tears just kept filling my eyes. The experience taught me that an instructional activity does not always need to be replaced. We don't have to dumb down the curriculum when students struggle with it. Sometimes the activity is still appropriate. Sometimes the standard is still reasonable. Sometimes students simply need a clearer path toward success. After that semester, I created a complete LTVD independent study module that students completed during the first 2 weeks of the course. The module taught them how to navigate the framework, manage the reading, develop stronger responses, and prepare for discussion. It ended with a 100-point assessment in a 1,000-point course, which communicated that this preparation was not an optional extra. It was foundational to their success. From that point forward, I stopped assuming that students entered my course with the same reading, writing, and time management experiences. Instead, I provided a range of tools that students could use according to their needs. Those who needed the support had access to it. Those who did not still received an important message. I cared about their success. I was paying attention to their learning, and I was willing to help them meet the standard. That is the difference between lowering expectations and strengthening support. When we ask students what is making an experience difficult, listen carefully to their answers and respond to the actual source of their struggle. We do not have to abandon rigorous learning. We can preserve the destination while building a more visible, supportive path toward it. Ultimately, the better we understand where students are beginning, the better we can help them move toward where they need and want to go. Whew. Now that was a long example, wasn't it? But I felt that it was so important to share that with you, to bring that second idea home. And I hope that it brought something alive in you or made you reflect upon some things and some circumstances and some students in your own courses. Now let's move on to our final point. The third and final idea is that better course decisions begin with an inquiring mind that is committed to asking better questions. I might date myself with this flashback, but I grew up in the age when salacious magazines like The Inquirer were staples on coffee tables or in hands at the cash register. My grandma used to love to read The Inquirer. The tagline was, "Inquiring minds want to know." Of course, those intrusive investigations were about the lives of celebrities, but I think this type of energy or motivation with a little tweaking works for faculty. Now, let's be real. We do not need to collect every detail about a student's personal life. We are not conducting an investigation or an interrogation, and students should never feel pressured to disclose private information. But we are learning enough to design meaningful learning experiences. And as a result, we definitely can't wait until we receive the reports from our course evaluations to get feedback. By then, the course is over, and the students who offer the feedback may never benefit from the changes it inspires. And the students who did not leave the course with no voice, because we know it's few and far between of how many students, unless it's mandatory at your institution, who actually complete those course evaluations if it's an online course. Now, perhaps if you're in person, you might hand those out and the students fill them out right then. But if it's an option, not everyone does. But inquiring minds want to learn from students throughout the semester. Here is a list of instruments you might use, and I'm going to give you some time to read the screen so that you can see what they are. I'm not going to read all of them to you. I hope you found something on the list that you already do, as well as some fresh ideas. Now I'd like to share some better questions. I will give you some time to read them as well. And now comes the important part. We respond to what we learn. That does not mean granting every request or redesigning the entire course each time someone expresses a preference. It means looking for useful patterns, explaining what can and cannot change, and showing students that their voices were heard. When possible, we put several clues together. Attendance tells us one thing. Student work tells us another. A conversation may add context. A survey may reveal a pattern. Together, sources give us a fuller picture than any one source alone. Now let me give you a final example. In that same language and literacy course, I designed a culminating assignment called the Learning Outcome Course Review. Rather than simply asking students whether they liked the course, I invited them to examine whether the course had actually fulfilled its instructional promises. The review began with a table. The student learning outcomes appeared in the first column, followed by categories such as discussions, independent assignments, whole group and small group activities, resources, and multimedia materials. Students returned to the syllabus and revisited the course shell from beginning to end. For each learning outcome, they identified the specific instructional experiences that had helped them work toward it. They could not simply check a box or offer a vague response. They had to explain what they included and why it mattered. Then I asked them to reflect more personally. You can tell I'm a reflection person. At the end of a class, at the end of an assignment, reflection is a necessity. Make a note of that. What was one memorable moment from the course, the good, the bad, or even the ugly? That's the first question I asked them. Had they changed in any way from the first day of class to the present? Because I often told my students, if you are the same person that you were when this course began, you need to ask the university for a refund because you have been bamboozled and led astray. You paid this money for this course and you left this course the same. Unacceptable. And if they could change one thing about the course, what would it be? The most meaningful part was that students recorded their reviews. I did not simply read their completed tables. I heard them explain their thinking, describe their experiences, and reflect on their growth in their own voices. Of all the assignments I designed during my 19 years of teaching online, this one would easily rank among my top 3. In fact, I could hardly wait to watch the presentations each semester. Students shared so much about themselves and about the impact of the learning experience. They spoke with honesty, confidence, and remarkable transparency, y'all. I mean, students will tell you the truth if you really want to hear it. At times, it felt as though each student were sitting across from me, personally explaining what the course had meant to them over a cup of coffee. They told me which activities helped ideas finally make sense, They described moments when they felt challenged, surprised, frustrated, affirmed, or proud. They explained where they had grown and where they had needed more practice. And because I had asked questions that required them to examine the course closely, their responses gave me far more than praise or criticism. They gave me information I could use, y'all. Their feedback sparked ideas for redesigning assignments, clarifying instructions, strengthening learning activities, and providing more intentional opportunities for practice. What I learned from one group helped me improve the experience for the next group, and then the next, and the next. In fact, I used to make that journal due that they had to do to prepare for the LTVD. I used to make it due on Saturday evenings. I know a lot of online courses use Sunday, but I made it due on Saturday nights, I should say, because I wanted Sunday to be a fresh new start. On Sunday, we're moving it's a new week. We're moving ahead. And so I wanted them to end that week with that journal because we will be talking about the article or the textbook chapter the following Wednesday. And I really didn't want them to have that on their mind, at the top of the week on Sunday. That was just my thoughts. But my students let me know, hey, we like the Sunday night thing. We like having the journal due on Sunday. We would prefer the journal to be due on Sundays. And so I changed it. The assignment that I gave them, this course review assignment, kept me from becoming stagnant. It kept me from assuming that because a course had been carefully designed and had worked well before, catch this, it worked well before, there was nothing more to learn about it. I realized that just because it worked well before does not mean that there's not more I could learn about it. That doesn't mean that I can't become better at designing it and making it fit for the next group of students. Instead of resting on the strength of the course, I continued asking how the learning journey could become clearer, more meaningful, and more satisfying for the students who would experience it next. By the end of the semester, I could hear students tell me whether the course had fulfilled its promise. And between us, that feedback often meant more to me than the official course evaluation. But please don't tell anybody that I said that. This experience affirmed an important idea from How Learning Works. Let me tell you, if you don't have the book, How Learning Works, make sure you get your hands on it. The official title is How Learning Works, 8 Research-Based Principles for Smart Teaching, by Levitt et al. It's on the 2nd edition right now. And this is a quote from that book that I love. Learning is not something done to students, but rather something students themselves do. Students are the ones interpreting, navigating, and responding to the learning experiences we design. That means they can offer insight into the course that we cannot gain by viewing it from only the instructor's side of the screen. But the usefulness of their feedback depends greatly on what we ask. If we ask, did you enjoy the course? We may receive a simple yes or no. If we ask, what was your favorite assignment? We may learn what students preferred. But when we ask students to connect learning outcomes to specific experiences, identify where they received meaningful practice, describe how they changed, and recommend one thoughtful improvement, we gain evidence that can guide course design from the people who are taking the course. Better questions invite deeper reflection. Deeper reflection produces more useful information. And more useful information helps us make better instructional decisions. That is why better questions lead to better course design. You can take all of the certifications that you want to take. Let me just give you this sidebar. You can get all of the degrees that you want. I have a PhD in instructional design and technology. Doesn't matter. This happened before I got that PhD, by the way. But until you start to ask your students questions about how they learn, what they want to get out of the course, sometimes they don't know what they don't know. But if you don't at least ask, you will never be able to design a meaningful learning experience for the person that you're teaching, for the person that you're guiding on their learning journey. I know because I watched it happen over and over again. One student reflection, one course revision, and one learning experience at a time. My, we've been here for 45 minutes, so let me check the room. Are you all still here with me? How are you doing right now? Did those ideas awaken anything in you? Did those examples awaken anything in you? Did they spark memories of experiences from last semester? Now, before our longer reflection, let's complete a brief student signals scan. Grab a plain sheet of paper or the back of if you've printed your journal, your reflective reset companion, maybe the back page, and divide it into 3 sections. At the top of the first section, write, I notice. At the top of the second section, write, I assumed. And at the top of the third section, write, I wonder. I love a good old graphic organizer. This is taking me back to when I taught 2nd grade. We would fold a sheet of paper and make our own worksheet, make our own graphic organizer. Now, what I want you to do is think about one recurring behavior or pattern from the spring semester, or whenever you're watching this, the semester that you just came out of. It might involve participation, questions, attendance, assignment quality, missed deadlines, confusion, whatever the case may be. Just pick one recurring behavior. Maybe it was something that just got on your nerves that your students did. Under I noticed, write only what you actually observed, right, with your natural eye. Write what you observed. For example, I noticed that many students waited until the final evening to begin the discussion. Okay? Or, I noticed that some students struggled with class activities that required them to be creative or innovative. Take a moment to think about that and write what you noticed. Now, move to I assumed. What explanation did you initially attach to that pattern or to that observation? Perhaps you might say, I assumed they were procrastinating. Or, I assumed they have not been exposed to critical thinking or higher order thinking skills. There's no need to judge your assumption. It's okay. Simply name it. Now let's move to I wonder. What question could help you investigate the pattern more fully? You might write, I wonder whether students understood how much time the discussion would require. Or, I I wonder whether they needed more examples or more modeling before applying the concept independently. This simple shift from I noticed to I assumed to I wonder helps us separate observation from interpretation. Keep in mind, it does not require us to abandon our professional judgment, but it helps us make that judgment more informed. Now, when you have more time, sit with this exercise. You might want to do it multiple times or for different courses. Sit with this exercise because now we're going to move on to our reflection break. I hope you found that exercise was revelatory, but we're going to take 5 uninterrupted minutes for reflection. The central question is, what did my students reveal to me this semester? If you have the Reflective Reset Companion, turn to page 8. There you will see the subset of prompts. The questions will also be on the screen. Do not feel obligated to answer every question. Reflect in the ways that you see fit. You might want to make lists, you might want to sketch, or you may just want to write continuously. Do not feel rushed. Even though we're going to take 5 minutes, you can take as much time as you need. Your task is simply to notice what your students may have been showing you. Are we ready for our 5-minute writing time? I just absolutely love reflection time. All right, let's begin. Welcome back. I hope this session was enlightening and that something surprising or that was previously hidden is now in plain sight. If something that you wrote stuck out to you, circle, underline, or highlight it. Now, let's create a bridge from last semester to the upcoming semester by completing this statement. One thing I want to learn more about my students is. Now, if you feel led, type it in the comments. I would love to read it. Give you a few minutes, or not minutes, but a few seconds to do that. Something or the one thing I want to learn more about my students is. Now that you know what you want to learn, choose one small step that will move you closer to doing so. Complete this sentence. This is what connects the bridge. To learn more about my students next semester, I will. Now be specific about what you're going to do to learn more about your students. Instead of writing, I will ask better questions, even though we did talk about that, you could specifically say, I will encourage my students to schedule discovery sessions with me or complete a discovery survey during the first 2 weeks of school. Now, those are two ways you might ask better questions initially. Both methods are doable and could be set up easily. All you would need to do now is take some time to think about what you will do and how you will do it, and implement those two things. So we want to know what you would like to know about your students, but then you have to take the next step to say exactly how you're going to make that happen. Now, today we've paused to examine what our students may have revealed, but these insights are easiest to use when reflection becomes part of our regular teaching rhythm, rather than something we attempt to construct or reconstruct months later. That is the purpose of the WIRE community. WIRE stands for Week in Review. The WIRE community is where academics reflect and connect through shared experiences, and it is my baby. It is my gift to you this coming year and for years to come. Inside the community, we use the Professor's Week in Review, a journal for weekly reflections on the higher ed experience, to reflect systematically on our students, our teaching, and most of all, our well-being. Think of it as a professional third space. If you would like to learn more about it, click the link in the description or go to virtualgoji.com/The Wire Community. In our next reflective reset, we are going to turn the lens toward ourselves. We talked about our students today. We're going to talk about ourselves next week. Our theme will be what I learned about myself as an educator. We will reflect on what energized us, what depleted us when we felt most effective, and what teaching revealed about what we need in order to do our work well. Until then, remember, your students were always giving you information. Their behavior was a signal, not necessarily the full story. Reflective practice helps us slow down long enough to notice what happened and remain curious enough to ask what else we may need to learn. I know this was a long session, but I hope that you will return next week, and I will see you at the next reflective reset. Bye-bye.